A wealthy CEO, driving alone in a storm, made a split-second decision to help a poor grandmother and her shivering granddaughter. But he never could have imagined that just one sentence from the little girl would unravel a 37-year mystery and completely shatter the world he knew. Welcome back. We're so glad you're here. Before we begin, please take a second to like this video. It helps us out a lot. And let us know in the comments, what is the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Mr. Davis, I need you to tell me the truth. Do you really think we'll find her someday? Nathan Price's voice resonated with a mix of desperation and determination he had cultivated for 37 years. His elegant, tense fingers drummed on the mahogany desk as he scanned the report he had just received. Another false lead, another hope destroyed. The private investigator on the other end of the line was silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Mr. Price, we've checked every adoption record from 1,987 inches, Chicago, Street, Louis, and even some cities further south. Grace Morgan simply vanished from the system. Nathan closed his eyes and leaned back in his Italian leather chair. At 45, he had built a business empire that allowed him to hire the best investigators in the country, access government databases, and even offer rewards that would make any ordinary person reveal information. But Grace remained a ghost. "Keep searching," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "Expand the search to England. Maybe the family that adopted her emigrated." When he hung up the phone, the silence of his 20th floor office became suffocating. The glass walls offered him a panoramic view of Indianapolis, but Nathan only saw his own reflection, a successful man whose only failure was finding the one person who had meant something in his childhood. He opened the top drawer of his desk and pulled out a faded photograph. It was the only image he had of Grace, a 1-2-year-old girl with brown hair and bright eyes, smiling next to him in the courtyard of St. Joseph's orphanage. He was 8 years old and clung to his older sister as if she were his only connection to life. And she was. A memory arrived uninvited, as it always did when he looked at that photo. It was a stormy night at the orphanage. The younger children were crying, frightened by the thunder, but Grace had held him against her chest and begun to sing to him in a soft voice. "Sleep, my dear child. The moon will watch over you. Close your tender eyes, for tomorrow the sun will shine." Her voice had been his refuge, his home, in a place that never felt like one Mr. Price. The voice of Ryan Scott, his personal assistant, pulled him from the memory. "The board of directors is waiting for you." Nathan put the photograph away and straightened his tie. Ryan had been working for him for 8 years and had learned to recognize those moments when his boss mentally returned to a past that tormented him. "Go ahead, Ryan." "I'm on my way, sir. If I may, perhaps you should consider hiring international investigators. I've read about similar cases where I've hired investigators in Indiana, the US, England, and even in Argentina." Nathan interrupted him with a bitter smile. "They all tell me the same thing. It's as if Grace Morgan ceased to exist the day she left the orphanage." He headed toward the boardroom, but before opening the door, he paused. "Ryan, have you ever had the feeling that your life is incomplete, no matter what you've achieved?" The young man looked at him with understanding. He had seen how his boss donated millions to orphanages, how he preferentially hired young people without families, how his business success seemed to be just a tool to find someone who might no longer exist. "Every day, sir, but I believe some people are destined to find each other, no matter how much time passes." Nathan nodded slowly. "I hope you're right, Ryan, because if I don't find her soon..." He left the sentence hanging in the air. He entered the boardroom, where 12 executives awaited him with their quarterly reports, but his mind remained in that orphanage with a girl who sang to him during storms and promised she would never leave him. A promise that circumstances forced her to break, but that he had sworn to fulfill from the other side. He would find her, no matter the cost. That night, as he dined alone in his Carmel mansion, Nathan thought about what Ryan had said. Some people were destined to find each other. What he didn't know was that tonight, just 15 miles away, a 10-year-old girl was falling asleep while her grandmother sang her the same song Grace had sung to him decades ago, unaware that soon that melody would change 3 lives forever. Nathan Price's morning routine had been the same for the last 5 years. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., review the international markets, exercise in his private gym, and be at the office before 7. But that morning, as he shaved in front of the marble mirror in his bathroom, He noticed something different in his eyes, a fatigue that money couldn't cure. "Good morning, Mr." Nathan Alice Baker greeted him when he came down to the dining room. The five-year-old woman had been his housekeeper for 8 years and was probably the person who knew him best, although she never dared to cross the lines of professional respect. "Good morning, Alice. Just coffee, please, sir. Excuse me for meddling, but I overheard your phone conversation with the investigator yesterday. Can I prepare you something more substantial? It's going to be a long day." Nathan looked at her as she poured the coffee into the fine French china that he had never asked for, but that his decorator had deemed appropriate for a man of his position. Everything in that house had been chosen by others. The furniture, the works of art, even the books that decorated the library. It was a perfect and completely empty house. He looked at his reflection in the polished surface of the long, empty dining table, a table set for 12 people who would never come. Alice was right. The silence of the house wasn't peaceful. It was deafening. It was the sound of his failure, a failure that all his millions couldn't fix. "Just coffee is fine, Alice. I have an important meeting with Japanese investors." She nodded, but before retreating, she paused. "Mr. Nathan, can I ask you a personal question?" "Go ahead. Have you ever thought about starting a family of your own? Not that I'm prying, but well, this house is so big, so quiet." Nathan stopped the cup halfway to his lips. It was a question he had avoided for years, taking refuge in work and the obsessive search for Grace. "I already have a family, Alice. I just need to find her." "Yes, sir, I know. But I mean creating a new family. Sometimes, when we can't get back what we lost, we can build something new, something different, but just as valuable." Alice's words stayed with him throughout the day. In the meeting with the Japanese investors, as they discussed the expansion of his hotel chain, Nathan found himself thinking about what she had said. Create a new family. How could he do that when he didn't even know if Grace was still alive? The meeting extended until 7 p.m. The numbers were excellent. His hotels reported 92% occupancy, his restaurants had a 2-month waiting list, and his real estate investments had generated profits above projections. It was a resounding success that felt completely hollow. "Congratulations, Nathan," said Mr. Tanaka, the lead investor. As they said goodbye, "You are a very fortunate man." Fortunate. The word echoed in his head during the drive home. Was a man who could buy almost anything, except the one thing he truly desired. Fortunate? That night, after a solitary dinner in front of the TV news, Nathan went up to his study. It was the only room in the house he had decorated himself. The walls were covered with maps of Indiana, marked with red circles representing places where he had searched for Grace, file cabinets with copies of investigation reports, and a small shrine with photographs of Street Joseph's orphanage. He picked up the phone and dialed the number he knew by heart. "Mr. Davis, this is Nathan Price." "Mr. Price, good to hear from you. I was just about to call you tomorrow. We found something interesting in the archives from Fort Wayne." Nathan's heart sped up. "What did you find?" Grace Morgan was registered in a high school in 1992, but the adoptive family's last name is redacted on the document. "We're trying to..." "Does the age match?" "Yes, sir. She would have been exactly 17 on that date." Nathan closed his eyes. Another lead, another possibility, another chance for his heart to break when it turned out to be someone else. "Continue investigating, Mr. Davis, and extend the budget as needed." When he hung up, he stared out the window at the illuminated garden of his mansion. Somewhere in the city, maybe in the country, maybe in the world, Grace existed or had existed, and he wouldn't rest until he found her or until he had absolute certainty that it was no longer possible. He opened the orphanage photo album he kept in his desk. There were few images, but each one told a story. He and Grace playing in the courtyard, sharing breakfast, reading together under the only tree in the place. In all the photos, she protected him with her arm, or looked at him with that smile that had been his only refuge in a world that had abandoned them. "I'm going to find you, Grace," he whispered to the clearest photograph, where she was 12 and he was 8. "I promise you, no matter how long it takes, I'm going to find you." Outside, the first rumbles of a storm began to sound in the distance, and for a moment, Nathan thought he heard that soft voice singing to him, "Sleep, my dear child, the moon will watch over you." The thunder roared over Indianapolis with a fury that seemed to awaken all the demons of the sky. The streets had turned into impromptu rivers, and traffic moved with the desperate slowness of a funeral procession. Nathan Price sank into the back seat of his Mercedes-Benz, watching through the fogged window as the city transformed under the weight of the water. "Sir, the traffic is impossible," Mike Johnson, his trusted driver, informed him. "It looks like Meridian Street is flooded. We'll have to take the long route." "No problem, Mike. I'm in no hurry to get home." And it was true. His mansion awaited him with the same coldness as always. Empty rooms, solitary dinners, and the echo of his own footsteps resounding in hallways designed for a family that had never existed. At least in the car, he could pretend he was heading somewhere that mattered. The meeting with the investors had been exhausting. 3 hours discussing financial projections, analyzing markets, and planning expansions that would make him even richer and more alone. During the presentation, he had noticed how the other businessmen talked about their wives, their sons' football games, family vacations. He had only been able to talk about numbers. "Mike, how many years have you been working for me?" "5 years, Mr. Price. And what do you think of a man who has everything and no one?" Mike adjusted the rearview mirror to see his boss's eyes. In 5 years of work, he had learned to distinguish those moments when Nathan needed to talk more than to be transported. "I think that man still hasn't found what he's really looking for, sir." "And what if what he's looking for no longer exists? Then maybe he should look for something different, something that does exist." The conversation was interrupted by the deafening sound of thunder that seemed to split the sky in two. The rain intensified with such violence that the windshield wipers could barely clear the view for seconds. Mike slowed down almost to a stop. "Good Lord, I haven't seen a storm like this in years," the driver murmured. Nathan was about to respond when something caught his attention on the right side, at the College Avenue bus stop. 2 figures were sheltering as best they could under the metal roof that offered insufficient protection against the fury of the weather. An older woman and a young girl, soaked to the bone, were waiting for a bus that probably wouldn't arrive for hours. The image hit him like a punch to the stomach. The woman, who looked to be in her late 60s, was protectively hugging the little girl, shielding her with her own body from the rain that was seeping in from all sides. The girl clung to a doll that was dripping water, and both were visibly shivering from the cold. "Mike, stop," Nathan ordered without thinking. "Sir, stop there, next to the bus stop." Mike obeyed, though with obvious surprise. In 5 years working for Nathan Price, he had never seen him stop to help strangers on the street. Not because he was a bad person, but because he lived so enclosed in his personal search that the rest of the world seemed not to exist for him. "Are you going to?" "Yes." Nathan had already made the decision before finishing the thought. "I'm going to offer them a ride." "Sir, with all due respect, we don't know who those people are. And you've always told me—" "I know, Mike. I know everything I've always told you about security and keeping a distance. But look at them. That woman is protecting that child with her own life, and we're in here, dry and comfortable, while they're getting soaked." Mike studied his boss's face in the rearview mirror. There was something different in his eyes, something he hadn't seen before, a humanity that seemed to have been dormant for years. "As you wish, sir." Nathan lowered the window just enough to speak without getting completely soaked. Ma'am." The older woman turned toward the car with suspicion. In her eyes was the natural caution of someone who had learned to distrust strangers, especially those driving luxury cars. "You're getting soaked. We can take you where you need to go." The woman hesitated. The little girl looked at her with pleading eyes, tugging on her wet skirt. "Grandma, I'm so cold," the girl whispered with a trembling voice. It was that small voice that finalized the decision for both the woman and Nathan. Some moments in life are defined not by logic, but by the pure compassion that springs from the heart without permission from reason. "Are you a decent man, sir?" the woman asked, raising her voice to be heard over the rain. "I'm a person who can't just sit here and watch you two get sick from this storm," Nathan responded with complete honesty. The woman exchanged a look with the girl, who nodded urgently. The cold and the rain had overcome any precaution. "All right," the woman shouted, but only to the Fountain Square neighborhood. Mike got out with an umbrella and helped them into the car. When they were inside, soaked but finally safe, Nathan realized he had just made the most important decision of his life, a decision that would change everything, though he didn't know it yet. A simple act of kindness in the middle of a storm. Nathan felt he was just doing the right thing, but he had unknowingly opened the door to his destiny. What happens when these strangers in his car begin to talk? Let's find out. The interior of the Mercedes filled immediately with the scent of rain and dampness, mixed with the soft perfume of simple soap emanating from the two strangers. Nathan watched discreetly through the rearview mirror, while Mike adjusted the heat and offered them small towels he always kept in the car. "Thank you so much, sir," said the older woman, drying her face with delicate movements. "We didn't expect it to rain so hard. The weather has been stable all week." Her voice had the characteristic warmth of Midwestern women of her generation, mixed with a dignity that neither poverty nor circumstances had managed to break. Nathan estimated she was between 65 and 70, with grey hair pulled into a bun that the rain had partially undone, and calloused hands that spoke of a life of honest work. "Don't worry about it, ma'am. It was the least I could do," Nathan replied, turning slightly to look at them directly. "I'm Nathan Price, and this is Mike, my driver, Ruth Morgan." The woman introduced herself with a genuine smile. "And this is my granddaughter, Lily." The little girl, who had remained silent, clinging to her soaked doll, timidly raised her eyes. She was about 10 years old, with large brown eyes that reflected a precocious intelligence and a seriousness uncommon for her age. Her hair, the same brown color as her grandmother's, dripped onto a simple but clean dress, which had clearly been carefully ironed that morning. "Good evening, sir," Lily murmured in a polite little voice. "Good evening, Lily. How's your doll? She looks very wet, too." The question drew the first shy smile from the girl. "Her name is Grace. My grandma says that was my mummy's name." Nathan felt as if the air had been knocked out of his lungs. The name resonated in his head, not as an echo, but as a physical blow. He gripped the leather armrest, his knuckles turning white. He tried to tell himself it was a coincidence, a common name, nothing more. But his heart, which had been numb for decades, suddenly hammered against his ribs. He couldn't speak, only stare at the little girl. "Mr. Price, are you all right?" Ruth asked, noticing his sudden, intense pallor. Nathan forced himself to breathe. "Yes, I'm fine. That's a very beautiful name. I knew someone named Grace, a long time ago." Ruth noticed something strange in the tone of the elegant man who had saved them from the storm. "Are you all right, Mr. Price? You look a little pale." "I'm perfectly fine, thank you. It's just..." The name Grace brought back some memories. "I also knew a Grace many years ago." "Really?" Lily's eyes lit up with childish curiosity. "Was she pretty like my mummy?" "Yes, she was very pretty, and a very good person." Ruth gently stroked her granddaughter's damp hair. "Lily, don't ask the gentleman so many questions. He's being very kind by taking us home. Don't worry, Mrs. Ruth. I enjoy talking with Lily." Nathan turned to the girl. "Do you live with your grandma?" "Yes, ever since I was very little. My mommy and daddy went to heaven when I was 2. Lily replied with a naturalness that broke Nathan's heart. "But my grandma takes very good care of me. She teaches me to cook, helps me with my homework, and sings me the same songs my mommy used to sing to her when she was a little girl." "Lily is very smart," Ruth chimed in with obvious pride. "She's in the 5th grade and always gets the best grades in her class." "That's wonderful, Lily. What's your favorite subject?" "Math. My grandma says math never lies, that if you do the numbers right, they always give you the correct answer," the girl replied. "Seriously, I want to be an accountant when I grow up to help my grandma." Nathan felt a pang of emotion in his chest. There was something about this child, in her way of speaking, in her seriousness mixed with innocence, that reminded him of someone, but he couldn't identify exactly what or who. "And where do you work, Mrs. Ruth?" he asked, genuinely interested. Ruth hesitated for a moment. In her experience, rich men didn't usually ask questions about the lives of people like her, unless it was out of pity or condescension. "I clean houses, sir. 3 steady houses during the week, and on weekends, I help out at a diner at the city market. Grandma makes the best meatloaf in the whole market," Lily added with pride. "People come from far away just to try her food. That sounds delicious. Did you learn to cook from your mother?" "Yes, sir. My mother taught me that cooking with love is the most beautiful way to show affection to your family." Nathan noted how Ruth spoke of family with a special reverence, as if it were the most sacred thing that existed. It was something he had lost so long ago that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to belong to something bigger than himself. "Mike, How much longer until we reach the Fountain Square neighborhood? He asked, though he secretly wished the journey would last longer. About 15 more minutes, sir, with this traffic. Perfect, Nathan murmured, and for the first time in years, he really meant it. The car continued its slow path through the flooded streets, while inside, 3 people who didn't know they were connected by invisible threads of destiny began to weave a conversation that would change their lives forever. The rain had subsided to a steady drizzle that drummed softly on the roof of the Mercedes, creating an unexpected intimacy inside the vehicle. Nathan realized that for the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about Grace, private investigators, or false leads. He was completely present, fascinated by Ruth's quiet dignity and Lily's surprising maturity. Mrs. Ruth, if it's not too personal, how is it that you're raising Lily alone? He asked with genuine curiosity, careful not to sound intrusive. Ruth exchanged a quick glance with her granddaughter in the reflection of the fogged window. It was a question she had heard hundreds of times and had learned to answer with just enough truth to satisfy curiosity without opening wounds that still ached. My daughter Grace died in a car accident along with her husband when Lily was just 2 years old, she explained in a calm voice, though Nathan noticed her hands tighten slightly. Since then, it's been Lily and me against the world. The name Grace resonated again in Nathan's ears like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. It was the second time he had heard it that night, and although he kept telling himself it was just a coincidence, something inside him stirred with a mixture of hope and terror. He couldn't explain. "I'm very sorry for your loss," he murmured, and he truly meant it. "It must have been very difficult for you both." "At first, it was very hard," Ruth admitted. "Lily was so little, and I wasn't so young anymore to be chasing after a baby. But you know what, Mr. Price? Children teach us to be stronger than we think we can be." Lily had remained quiet during the exchange, but Nathan noticed how she carefully observed the adults' reactions. There was something in her eyes that spoke of a premature wisdom, the kind of understanding that only develops in children who have had to grow up too fast. "And do you remember anything about your parents?" Lily, Nathan asked gently. The girl shook her head. "Not much. Sometimes I think I remember my mommy's voice singing to me, but my grandma says it's probably the songs she sings to me, the same ones my mommy sang to her when she was little." "Family songs are very special," Nathan commented, thinking of the melody Grace used to sing to him during the storms. "They're passed down from generation to generation like a gift that never ends." "Exactly." Ruth smiled warmly. "My Grace had a beautiful voice. She was always singing, ever since she was very little. She said songs made the sad days less sad." "Was your Grace adopted, Mrs. Ruth?" Nathan asked, and immediately regretted the question. It had sounded too direct, too personal. Ruth was visibly surprised by the question. "What? How did you know?" Nathan's heart began to beat faster. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be indiscreet. It's just, you mentioned your daughter sang since she was very little, and there's something in the way you talk about her that made me think. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong." "No, you weren't wrong," Ruth sighed deeply. "Grace spent part of her childhood in an orphanage. The circumstances of my life at that time, well, I couldn't take care of her as I wanted. A very good family adopted her when she was 12, but we always kept in touch. When she grew up, she came back looking for me and gave me the greatest gift of my life." Knowing Lily, Nathan felt as if the world had stopped spinning. The pieces of an impossible puzzle were beginning to fit together in a way his rational mind refused to accept. Grace, adopted at 12, with a beautiful voice, who sang family songs. "What orphanage was she in?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "In St. Joseph's, right here in Indianapolis." "Why do you ask, Mr. Price?" "You look very pale," Nathan couldn't answer. St. Joseph's, the same orphanage where he had lived, where he had met his Grace, where he had first heard that song that calmed him during the storms. Mike, he managed to articulate. "Pull over for a moment. Please, sir. Are you feeling ill? I just need a moment." The car stopped at the curb. Nathan lowered the window completely, needing fresh air. The raindrops that blew in felt like cold blessings on his heated face. "Mr. Price, are you okay?" Ruth asked with genuine concern. "Do you need us to go to a hospital?" No, I'm fine. It's just .co.you tell me what year your daughter was adopted." Ruth frowned, confused by the question, but answered, "In 1987. She had just turned 12. Nathan closed his eyes. 1987. The same year Grace Morgan had been adopted from St. Joseph's orphanage. The same year that he, at 8 years old, had lost the only family he had ever known. "Sir," Lily's small, the worried voice brought him back to the present. "Why are you crying?" Nathan touched his cheeks and realized that tears were indeed rolling down his face without him noticing. "Lily, honey, don't ask questions," Ruth gently reprimanded her granddaughter, but her eyes were fixed on Nathan with a mixture of compassion and curiosity. "No, it's okay." Nathan wiped his tears and turned completely toward them. "Mrs. Ruth, I need to ask you a very important question, and I need you to answer me with complete honesty." "Of course, sir. Your daughter Grace, when she was in the orphanage, did she have a special friend? A child she looked after, one she sang to during the storms?" Ruth's eyes widened, her face transformed as if she had seen a ghost. "Mr. Price, how could you possibly know that?" The silence inside the Mercedes became so dense it seemed to have physical weight. Ruth looked at Nathan with a mixture of astonishment and understanding that was slowly beginning to filter into her consciousness, like the dawn gradually illuminating a landscape that had been hidden in darkness. Lily watched the adults, not fully understanding what was happening, but with the natural intuition of children, she knew something very important was about to change in their lives. "Mrs. Ruth," Nathan's voice trembled like a leaf in the wind. "Did your daughter Grace ever tell you about a boy from the orphanage? A little boy, younger than her, that she protected?" Ruth pressed her hands to her chest. Her breathing became irregular. "Mr. Price, how is it possible that you— Please, answer me. It's very important." "Yes," Ruth whispered. She always talked about her little brother from the orphanage, a boy who arrived when he was 4, after his parents died in an accident. She said he was very shy, very frightened, and that she looked after him, that she sang to him during the storms because the thunder terrified him. Nathan felt as if 37 years of desperate searching had converged in that single moment, in that car stopped in the rain, with 2 women who didn't know they were about to change his life forever. Do you remember that boy's name?" Ruth nodded slowly, her eyes shining with tears that were beginning to form. "She called him Nathan. My Grace never stopped looking for him, even when she got married, even when Lily was born. She always said that one day she was going to find him, that she had made a promise to take care of him, and that promises aren't broken, even if a lifetime passes." Nathan's world collapsed and rebuilt itself in the same instant. 37 years of searching, of private investigators, of false leads, of sleepless nights wondering if Grace was still alive. And it turned out she had been looking for him too, that she had kept her promise to care for him in the only way she could, by keeping his memory alive, by talking about him, by never forgetting him. Grandma Lily tugged gently on Ruth's sleeve. "Why are you crying? Did we do something wrong?" Ruth hugged her granddaughter to her chest, her own tears mixing with the dampness still dripping from her hair. "No, my love, we didn't do anything wrong. It's just, I think we've just found a miracle." Nathan turned completely toward them, no longer caring about the tears streaming freely down his cheeks. "Lily, my beautiful girl, I am that boy your mom talked to your grandma about. I am Nathan, your mom's little brother from the orphanage." Lily looked at him with those big brown eyes, processing the information with the simple but profound logic of children. "Then, you knew my mommy when she was little?" "Yes, my love. Your mom was my big sister. She took care of me. She protected me. And she sang me a very beautiful song when I was scared during the storms." "What song?" Lily asked with curiosity. Nathan took a deep breath, his entire 37-year search hanging in this one moment. With a voice broken by emotion, he began to sing, "Sleep, my dear child, the moon will watch over you. Close your tender eyes, for tomorrow the sun will shine." Ruth's eyes narrowed slightly. "Sir, that's a very personal family song. How could you possibly know?" Before she could finish her suspicious question, Lily sat bolt upright in the seat, her eyes wide as saucers. "Grandma, that's the song. That's Mummy's song," he sang. "Mummy's song. That's the moment. The song, the one private, precious thing that connected them, is the final proof. The search that defined Nathan's entire adult life is over. Just like that, in the back of a car. But finding them is one thing. What happens after the miracle? Ruth's suspicion shattered, replaced by stunned disbelief. She stared at Nathan, her hand flying to her mouth. Grace, my Grace always said. She sang that song to her little brother at the orphanage, so he wouldn't be afraid. Mr. Nathan, are you? She called him Nathan, Ruth whispered, her voice trembling as the tears began to fall. My Grace never stopped looking for him. Nathan turned to them, the tears he had held back for 37 years, finally streaming down his face. I am that boy. I am Nathan, your mom's little brother from the orphanage, Ruth corrected herself. For 37 years, I've heard my daughter talk about you. For 8 years, after she died, I've heard Lily sing the song she sang to you. And now you're here, in this car, after saving us from the storm. Mike, who had remained silent throughout the conversation, turned from the driver's seat. In his 5 years working for Nathan, he had never seen him cry. Now he watched him fall apart and rebuild himself at the same time, as if he had found a piece of his soul he thought was lost forever. Mr. Price. I don't know what to say, Mike murmured. Don't say anything, Mike. Just let me process this. Nathan extended his hands toward Ruth and Lily. Can I hug you? Ruth nodded, and for the first time in 37 years, Nathan Price felt what it meant to be home, not in a physical house, but in the home of the heart he had lost when he was 8 years old, and which he had just recovered in the most unexpected and impossible way. Lily snuggled against him, as if she had known him all her life, and whispered against his chest, Uncle Nathan, now we won't be alone anymore, my grandma and me. And Nathan, with his heart fuller than it had been in decades, replied, No, my love, you will never be alone again. I will take care of you, just like your mum took care of me. Outside, the storm began to calm, as if the sky had finished crying all the tears it needed to shed, so that 3 lonely hearts could find each other in the darkness and discover that sometimes families are not just lost. Sometimes they are also found. The next 2 hours inside the Mercedes were the most intense in the lives of the 3 adults present. Mike had driven to a 24-hour diner in the Broad Ripple neighborhood, where they had taken refuge to process what had just happened. Lily dozed in Ruth's lap, exhausted by the night's emotions, while Nathan and his newfound family tried to absorb the miracle that had just transformed their lives. Mrs. Ruth Nathan had insisted she call him by his first name, but she resisted out of a mixture of respect and bewilderment. I need you to tell me everything about Grace, everything you can remember. Ruth held a coffee cup, which she had let grow cold, between her trembling hands. I don't even know where to begin, son. It's just it. So incredible that you're here. Grace talked about you so much, I feel like I already know you. What happened to her after she was adopted? Nathan asked, his voice heavy, with 37 years of unanswered questions. The investigators I hired could never find a trace of her after 1987. The family that adopted her, their last name was Mason. They were good people, but very private. Ruth took a sip of coffee and sighed deeply. They took her to England because Mr. Mason had business there. Grace lived in London for 8 years. England, Nathan put his head in his hands. That's why we never found her. All the investigators only searched in the US. When she turned 20, she came back looking for me. Imagine my surprise when I saw this elegant young lady knocking on my door, speaking with a British accent, but with the same eyes she had when I took her to the orphanage at 10. Lily stirred in her grandmother's arms, whispering something inaudible in her sleep. Ruth adjusted her and continued her story. At first, things were difficult between us. I felt guilty for having lost her, and she was hurt by all those years apart. But little by little, we healed those wounds. Grace was an extraordinary woman, Nathan. She had a college education. She spoke 3 languages, but she never felt superior to anyone. What did she do for a living? She worked as a translator for an international company. She earned good money but lived simply. She said she had seen too much poverty as a child to waste money on unnecessary luxuries. Nathan felt a pang of admiration mixed with sadness. And how did she meet Lily's father, Robert Miller? He was a good, hard-working man. They met at the diner where he ate every day. She had gone to keep me company when I was helping out there on weekends. Ruth smiled nostalgically. It was love at first sight. Robert didn't have a college degree like Grace, but he had a heart the size of the world. They lived well, modestly, but they were happy. Grace always said that true wealth was in love, not in money. They bought a small house in Speedway, near where I lived. Robert worked in construction, and Grace continued as a translator from home after Lily was born, and she never stopped looking for me. Ruth looked at him with shining eyes. Never. Every year on your birthday, she would light a candle and say a prayer for you to be well, to be happy. She hired an investigator when Lily was 1, but she had no more luck than you did. She said maybe God had a different plan, that maybe you would meet when the time was right. Tears rolled down Nathan's cheeks. How did they die? It was a Friday night. They had gone out to dinner to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. A drunk driver ran a red light at an intersection. Ruth closed her eyes, the pain still fresh after 8 years. The doctors said they died instantly, that they didn't suffer. And Lily was with me that night. Grace had asked me to watch her so she could have a romantic dinner with Robert. When the police came to give me the news, Lily was just 2 years old, but somehow she understood that something terrible had happened. She didn't stop crying for 3 days. Nathan looked at the girl sleeping in Ruth's arms. How did you manage to raise her? With a lot of effort, many prayers, and God's help. Grace had left some savings, but not much. The house was sold to pay the remaining debts. We moved into a small apartment in Fountain Square, and since then, I've worked cleaning houses to support us. Did you ever think about seeking help? From the government? From charities? Ruth sat up straighter in her chair, her dignity emerging like a shield. Mr. Nathan, I come from a working-class family. My mother taught me that as long as you have hands to work and health to move, you shouldn't ask for handouts from anyone. Lily and I have gotten by with honest work. I didn't mean handouts, Mrs. Ruth. I meant support, educational programs for Lily, I know, son. And don't misunderstand me. I know there are good people who help without expecting anything in return. But I've also seen how some institutions treat people like us, as if we're less than others for not having money. I'd rather work twice as hard than risk my granddaughter's dignity. Nathan fell silent, absorbing the lesson in humility he had just received. He had spent decades accumulating wealth, believing that money could solve any problem. And now, he had in front of him a woman who had raised a child alone with minimal resources, but with a dignity he had lost somewhere in his ascent to success. Mrs. Ruth, I have a lot of money, more than I could spend in several lifetimes. And now that I've found you, I want to help you. I want Lily to have the best opportunities, for you to not have to work so hard. Ruth raised her hand to stop him. Son, I appreciate your generosity from the heart. I really do. But I need you to understand something. Lily and I are not a charity project. We are people with our own dignity. I know you didn't mean to offend, but listen to me carefully. If we are going to be family, it has to be because we genuinely love and respect each other, not because you feel obligated to rescue us. Nathan was speechless. In his business world, problems were solved with money, with contracts, with transactions. But Ruth was teaching him that family relationships operated under completely different rules. Then, what do you propose? I propose that we get to know each other. For real. That you come visit us at our home, see how we live, understand who we really are. If after that, you still want to be part of our lives, then we'll talk about how we can be a family. And just like that, Ruth sets the new rules. She has nothing, yet she holds all the power, teaching Nathan a lesson his millions could never buy. Family isn't a transaction. He found them, but now he has to prove he's worthy of belonging to them. This next step might be harder than the 37-year search. Lily woke up at that moment, blinking in confusion. Are we home, Grandma? Not yet, my love. We're talking with Mr. Nathan. With my Uncle Nathan, Lily asked. And the naturalness with which she said those words made Nathan's heart expand in his chest. Yes, my girl. With your Uncle Nathan, Lily sat up and looked at him with those big, bright eyes. Uncle Nathan, can you come to our house for dinner tomorrow? My grandma makes delicious mashed potatoes. Nathan looked at Ruth, who nodded with a smile. I'd love to, Lily. I'd love to see your home and try those mashed potatoes. And will you tell me more stories about my mummy when she was little? I'll tell you every story. I remember, my love. Ruth stood up, lifting Lily. Then, it's settled. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Now, we have to go home. It's very late for this young lady. When they left the diner, the rain had stopped completely, and the stars were beginning to peek out from between the dispersing clouds. Mike was waiting by the car, smiling as if he had witnessed a miracle. During the final drive to the Fountain Square neighborhood, Nathan watched out the window as the urban landscape gradually changed from the elegant downtown neighborhoods to the working-class areas on the outskirts. It was a world he knew abstractly, through statistical reports and his company's social responsibility programs, but had never experienced personally. When they arrived at the address Ruth had provided, Nathan saw a 3-story apartment building with a worn but clean facade, small balconies adorned with potted plants that someone cared for meticulously, and exterior concrete stairs that spoke of functional rather than aesthetic. Construction. "This is our home," Lily announced with pride. "We live on the 2nd floor. From our window, you can see the donut shop, where she buys the best pastries in the whole neighborhood." "It looks perfect," Nathan replied sincerely. Ruth got out of the car carrying Lily, who was already falling asleep again. Before closing the door, she leaned in to speak to Nathan. "Son, thank you for tonight, for saving us from the rain, for everything. Grace would be so happy to know we finally found each other. Thank you, Mrs. Ruth, for accepting me, for giving me the chance to know you tomorrow at 2, and don't bring expensive gifts or anything like that. Just bring an appetite and a willingness to talk like family." Nathan nodded, watching as Ruth climbed the stairs carrying Lily, her steps tired but steady. When they disappeared onto the 2nd floor and a light turned on behind a window with simple curtains, he realized he had just begun the most important chapter of his life. "Home." "Mike," he said finally, "are you all right, sir? I feel different. Like I've been living someone else's life for 45 years and I've just remembered who I really am." The Mercedes pulled away slowly from the Fountain Square neighborhood, taking a man back to Carmel who was no longer the same one who had left that morning. Nathan Price, the lonely millionaire, had died that night in the rain. In his place, Uncle Nathan had been born, the adoptive son of Ruth, the younger brother of Grace who had finally returned home. The next morning dawned with a clear sky that seemed to have been washed clean by the previous night's storm. Nathan woke up in his king-sized bed with Italian silk sheets, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel lost in the vastness of his bedroom. He had a purpose that went beyond work, beyond money, beyond the fruitless search that had consumed his adult life. "Good morning, Mr." Nathan Alice greeted him when he came down to the dining room. "You look different this morning." "Did you sleep well, Alice? Sit down for a moment. I need to tell you something incredible." The woman looked at him, surprised. In 8 years working in that house, Nathan had never asked her to sit and chat. He had always maintained a cordial but clear professional distance. "Is something wrong, sir?" "On the contrary, something wonderful has happened." Nathan told her the whole story. The rain, Ruth and Lily at the bus stop, the revelation about Grace, the family connection he had found after 37 years of searching. Alice listened with widening eyes, pressing her hands to her chest when Nathan got to the part about the lullaby. "My goodness, Mr. Nathan, it's a miracle," she exclaimed when he finished. "I always told you God had a plan for you, that your sister was watching over you from heaven. And you were right, Alice. Grace was watching over me all these years through Ruth and Lily, even though I didn't know it. And what are you going to do now?" "I'm going to their house for dinner today at 2. I want to really know how they live, to understand who they are beyond what I saw last night." Alice nodded in approval. "That's the right thing to do, sir. Family isn't bought with money. It's built with time, with respect, with true affection." "Alice, can I ask for your advice?" "Of course. Last night, when I wanted to talk about money, about helping them financially, Mrs. Ruth got upset. I don't understand why. I just want them to be okay." Alice smiled wisely. "Mr. Nathan, you've lived your whole adult life in a world where money solves problems. But Mrs. Ruth comes from a world where dignity is worth more than comfort. For people like her, accepting money from a stranger, even if he's family, can feel like losing your self-respect. So how can I help them? First, earn their trust. Show them you love them for who they are, not because you feel obligated to rescue them. Then, when you're really part of the family, you'll find ways to help that don't hurt their pride. Like what? Like discreetly paying for the girl's private school, but telling her you found a scholarship. Like taking them to the doctor when necessary, but as a concerned uncle, not as a benefactor. Like inviting them to nice restaurants to celebrate birthdays or Lily's achievements, not to show off your wealth." Nathan nodded, absorbing every word. "And if they never fully accept me?" If they always feel I come from a world too different from theirs, then you'll have to decide what's more important, maintaining your current lifestyle or being part of a real family. Sometimes you can't have it all, Mr. Nathan. A millionaire just got a masterclass in humility from his housekeeper. Alice gave Nathan the roadmap, and it's clear. This new life isn't about transactions. It's about trust. He's about to go to their home for the first time, not as a rich benefactor, but just as, Nathan, can he even do that? Let's see what happens. Those words resonated in Nathan's mind all morning as he reviewed contracts and took business calls. For the first time in his professional life, the numbers on the financial reports caused him no emotion. The quarterly profits, which normally would have filled him with satisfaction, seemed abstract and irrelevant. At 12 p.m., he told Ryan to cancel all his afternoon appointments. "Are you feeling unwell, Mr. Price?" "I feel perfectly fine, Ryan. I just have a family engagement that is more important than any business." Ryan looked at him with curiosity but asked no questions. He had learned to respect his boss's privacy. Nathan spent the next hour choosing what to wear. His closet was full of tailor-made suits, European brand shirts, and shoes that cost more than most people's monthly salary. But none of it seemed appropriate for visiting Ruth and Lily. He finally chose a pair of dark jeans he had bought years ago but never worn, a white cotton shirt with no designer logos, and casual leather shoes. He looked in the mirror, and for the first time in decades, he recognized himself, not as the millionaire Nathan Price, but as Nathan, the person he had been before. Money and success created a barrier between him and the rest of the world. "Mike, we're going to the Fountain Square neighborhood. But first, stop at a traditional bakery. I want to bring donuts for Lily." "Any particular bakery, sir? The most humble one you can find. The one with the least elegant display, but the most authentic aroma." Mike looked at him in the rearview mirror with a smile. "I know the perfect place, sir." 20 minutes later, Nathan was walking along the cracked concrete sidewalk toward the building where Ruth and Lily lived, carrying a paper bag of cinnamon rolls, bear claws, and fresh-baked donuts. The aroma of the pastries mixed with the smells of the neighborhood home, cooked food simmering in some apartment, laundry soap from clothes someone had hung to dry on a balcony, the sweet scent of petunias growing in makeshift pots. It was a world completely different from his. But as he climbed the stairs to the second floor, Nathan realized he felt more at home than he ever had in his Carmel mansion. He knocked gently on the door, and when it opened, Lily appeared with a smile that lit up the whole hallway. "Uncle Nathan, you're here." "Grandma, my Uncle Nathan is here." And at that moment, standing on the threshold of a 500-square-foot apartment in a working-class building in Fountain Square, Nathan Price knew he had arrived at the richest place in the world. Ruth and Lily's apartment was a lesson in dignity in small spaces. 2 tiny bedrooms, a living room that also served as a dining room, a kitchen the size of a closet, and a microscopic bathroom. But every corner had been organized with such love and care that it radiated more warmth than any mansion. Come in, Mr. Nathan," Ruth invited him, drying her hands on an apron that had seen better days but was impeccably clean. "Excuse the mess. We're not used to having visitors." Nathan looked around and saw no mess. On the contrary, he saw a living room with a love seat covered with a hand-knitted blanket that hid the wear of the original fabric, a wooden coffee table that someone had sanded and varnished with care, and walls decorated with family photographs in simple but carefully placed frames. "Your home is beautiful, Mrs. Ruth. It feels full of love. That's the nicest thing anyone has said about it," Ruth replied with a genuine smile. "Sit wherever you like. Lily, go get the glasses for the sweet tea." "Sweet tea?" Nathan asked. "I haven't had that in years. My grandma makes the best sweet tea in the whole neighborhood," Lily declared, with pride from the kitchen. "She puts a special lemon in it that she buys at the farmer's market." Nathan sat on the sofa and immediately noticed the photographs on the coffee table. Most of them showed Lily at different stages of growth. Her first day of school, blowing out candles on modest but happy birthdays, receiving certificates for her grades. But there was one photograph that completely captured his attention. It was Grace, as an adult, holding a baby Lily. The woman in the photo had the same bright eyes he remembered from his childhood, but her face had matured into a serene beauty that spoke of lived experiences. She wore a simple dress and her brown hair was pulled back, but her smile was exactly the same one that had comforted his childhood fears 30 years prior. "That's my favorite photo of Grace, with Lily," Ruth said, noticing his gaze. It was taken when Lily turned 1. Grace had just taught her to say, "Mama," and she was so proud she couldn't stop smiling. "She looks happy," Nathan murmured, delicately touching the frame. "She looks at peace." She was. Grace found happiness in the simple things. A clean home, a good husband, a healthy daughter. She always said she had learned in the orphanage to value what she had, not to lament what she lacked. Lily returned from the kitchen, carefully carrying a tray with 3 glasses filled with creamy sweet tea with lemon slices. "Uncle Nathan, try it. You'll really like it," Nathan took a sip and closed his eyes. The flavor transported him immediately to his childhood, to the special occasions at the orphanage when the nuns would prepare fresh lemonade to celebrate a holiday. "It's delicious, Lily. Your grandma is right. It's the best I've ever had." "Really," Lily beamed. "I'll show you my room while my grandma finishes cooking." Ruth nodded her approval, and Lily took Nathan's hand to guide him down the small hallway to her bedroom. It was a tiny space with a single bed, a wooden desk that had been painted white to hide its years of use, and makeshift shelves full of textbooks and a few toys. "This is my favorite place in the whole house," Lily announced. "This is where I do my homework, read my books, and keep my most important treasures." "What kind of treasures?" Lily approached a shoebox, decorated with colored paper, and opened it with reverent care. Inside were photographs of her parents, drawings she had made for her grandmother, and a few letters Grace had written to her before she died, for her to read when she was older. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small silver chain with a heart-shaped locket. "My mummy gave me this when I turned 2. It's the last thing I remember about her." Lily put the chain around her neck. "My grandma says that whenever I feel lonely, I can touch the little heart and remember that my mummy is watching over me from heaven." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. "It's very beautiful, Lily, and your mummy will always be watching over you, even if you can't see her. Do you also have something that reminds you of my mom when she was your sister?" Nathan took the faded photograph he had carried for 37 years from his wallet. "This is the only photo I have of your mom and me when we were children. I've carried it with me all these years." Lily studied the image with fascination. "My mom looks so little here. How old was she?" "Your mom was 11, and I was 7. We had just come in from playing in the orphanage courtyard. You look very happy together. Your mom made me very happy. She was the only family I had in the world. And now we're your family," Lily declared, with the simple but profound logic of children. "My grandma and I can make you happy too. You already are, my love. You already are." Lily carefully put her treasures away and closed the box. "Come on, I'll show you the photos of my mom we have in the living room. There's one where she's singing at a Christmas party, and she looks just like she must have when she sang to you at the orphanage." They returned to the living room, where Ruth was putting the finishing touches on the table. She had laid out an embroidered tablecloth that she clearly reserved for special occasions and had arranged the nicest china in the house. Plates of blue and white ceramic that didn't match perfectly, but had been arranged with such care that they looked like a designer set. "The food is ready," Ruth announced. "I hope you're hungry, Mr. Nathan, because Lily insisted I prepare everything. I know how to cook. We made tomato soup, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, and apple pie for dessert," Lily listed proudly. "My grandma got up at 5 a.m. to make sure everything was perfect." Nathan felt overwhelmed by the generosity. He knew this meal had cost a significant part of Ruth's weekly budget, and that the time and effort invested represented a gift more valuable than anything his money could buy. "Mrs. Ruth, you didn't have to go to so much trouble." "It wasn't trouble, son. It was joy. It's been 8 years since I've cooked for a man in the family. It feels good to have a reason to use my best recipes." During the meal, Nathan discovered flavors he had forgotten existed. Not the sophisticated food of the restaurants where he regularly dined, but the honest cooking of expert hands that cooked with love rather than technique. Every bite told him a story. The fried chicken Ruth had learned from her mother, the mashed potatoes Grace had perfected during her marriage, the apple pie that was the specialty passed down through 3 generations of women. "Tell me more about Grace," Nathan asked between bites. "What was she like as a mother?" "She was patient, affectionate, but also firm when she needed to be," Ruth replied. "She never yelled at Lily, but she had a way of looking at her that was enough for the girl to know she had done something wrong." and she sang to her every night. The same songs you had taught her in the orphanage, and others she had learned in England. Lily knew more lullabies than any 2-year-old. "Can you sing one for me?" "Lily," Nathan asked. "I'd like to hear what your mum's voice sounds like through yours." Lily became shy for the first time. "You won't be embarrassed. On the contrary, it would make me very happy." The girl closed her eyes and began to sing in a clear, sweet voice. "Sleep, my dear child. The moon will watch over you. Close your tender eyes, for tomorrow the sun will shine." It was the same song, with the same melody, but in Lily's voice there were echoes of grace, echoes of generations of women who had comforted their loved ones with that simple but powerful music. Nathan closed his eyes, and for a moment he felt as if Grace were there at that humble table, blessing the reunion he had awaited for decades. When Lily finished singing, the three of them sat in silence, wrapped in the magic of a song that had traveled through time and separation to reunite a family that should never have been lost. "Thank you, my love," Nathan whispered. "That was beautiful. Your mom would be so proud of you." And at that moment, seated at a worn wooden table in a 500-square-foot apartment, Nathan Price knew he had found something all his money had never been able to buy him, a place where he belonged. After the meal, while Ruth washed the dishes in her small kitchen and Lily did her math homework at the dining table, Nathan observed the family routine that had learned to exist without him. It was a silent symphony of practical love, Ruth discreetly checking that Lily had understood the math problems, Lily automatically taking her plate to the sink without being asked, both moving through the reduced space with the grace of those who have learned to share every square inch with respect and consideration. "Can I help with something?" Nathan asked, feeling useless in his role as a guest. "Nothing, son. Sit down and rest." "You're a guest," Ruth replied from the kitchen, "but I'd like to do something. In my house, well, I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't do anything domestic. There's always someone else who takes care of everything." Ruth peeked out from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. "You've never washed a dish, Mr. Nathan. Not since I was a kid in the orphanage. Afterwards, well, I've always had household staff." Lily looked up from her math notebook. "Seriously? You don't even know how to make a fried egg?" "I have no idea how to make a fried egg," Nathan admitted with an embarrassed smile. "Grandma," Lily exclaimed, "we have to teach him to cook. My uncle can't possibly not know how to make an egg." Ruth laughed, a warm sound that filled the small apartment. "Lily is right. No man should be completely dependent on others to feed himself. Would you like us to teach you some basics?" "I'd love to," Nathan replied sincerely, "but I wouldn't want to be in your way." "On the contrary. Lily, finish your homework, and then we'll give your uncle his first cooking lesson." For the next hour, Nathan found himself standing in Ruth's tiny kitchen, learning to chop an onion without crying, to season potatoes with the exact amount of salt, and to flip fried eggs without breaking the yolk. His hands, accustomed to signing multi-million-dollar contracts and handling sophisticated technology, trembled slightly as he held the spatula. Slower, Uncle Nathan Lily guided him, standing on a chair to reach the stove. "The egg will tell you when it's ready to flip. Look how the edges are already brown." "How does a 10-year-old girl know this?" Nathan asked, amazed. "My grandma has been teaching me since I was 5. She says a woman who doesn't know how to cook is doomed to depend on others her whole life, and a girl who doesn't know how to take care of a house will never be able to take care of a family." "Wise philosophy," Nathan murmured, concentrating on not burning the egg. "Grace cooked very well too," Ruth chimed in. "When she married Robert, he couldn't believe someone so elegant knew how to make fried chicken from scratch. He said he had married a princess who had the hands of a cook. Robert was a good man, the best, hard-working, honest, devoted to Grace and Lily. He didn't have a college education like Grace, but he had a heart the size of the world and hands that could fix anything that broke. Grace was happy with him." Ruth grew thoughtful for a moment. "You know, Mr. Nathan, I once asked Grace if she didn't regret leaving the comfortable life she had with the Masons to marry a construction worker. Do you know what she told me?" "What did she say?" "She said, 'Mom, with the Masons I had financial security, but with Robert, I have peace in my heart. I'd rather eat beans with love than caviar with loneliness.'" Grace's words, relayed by Ruth, struck Nathan like a revelation. For decades, he had believed that success and wealth would make him happy, that finding Grace would complete him. But now he understood that Grace had found her completeness not in material possessions, but in genuine love and in a family built with care and dedication. "It's ready," Lily exclaimed. Clapping, Uncle Nathan made his first fried egg. Nathan looked at the plate with more pride than he had felt for any business achievement. It was an imperfect egg, with slightly burnt edges and a yolk a bit more cooked than ideal, but he had made it himself, with his own hands, in the kitchen of his new family. "Can we eat it together?" he asked. "Of course," Ruth replied, cutting the egg into 3 pieces. In this house, achievements are celebrated together. As they ate the shared egg, each on their little piece of toast, Lily asked a question that changed the entire dynamic of the afternoon. "Uncle Nathan, why do you live alone in a big house if you don't have a family?" The question, posed with the brutal honesty of children, left Nathan speechless for a moment. "Why? Because I thought that's what I had to do. Earn money, buy a big house, have nice things. I thought that would make me happy. And does it make you happy?" "No, my love. It makes me feel very lonely." "Then why don't you come live with us?" Lily asked with the simple logic of children. "There's room here. My room is small, but another bed fits, and my grandma cooks for many people, even if it's just the 2 of us." Ruth choked slightly on her piece of toast. "Lily, don't say such things. Mr. Nathan has his life, his responsibilities, but Grandma, he said he feels lonely, and we feel lonely sometimes too. If we lived together, nobody would be lonely. Leave it to a child to see the simplest, most profound solution. Lily just offered him the one thing he's always wanted, a home." But her innocent question puts Nathan on the spot. Is he brave enough to accept an offer that will cost him nothing and everything? Nathan looked at the girl with astonishment. In her innocence, Lily had identified the central problem of all their lives and proposed the most obvious solution in the world. "Lily, my love," Nathan said carefully, "I would love to spend more time with you, but your grandma is right. I come from a very different world than yours. I don't know if I could adapt to living so." "Simply, is simple bad?" Lily asked, confused. "No, my girl, simple isn't bad. On the contrary. But I don't know how to live simply. I don't know how to do the things you do every day. But we can teach you," Lily insisted, "like we taught you to make the egg. And you can teach us things you know how to do." "Like what?" "Well, drive nice cars, use fancy computers, speak French," Lily listed seriously. "And you can also teach us about my mom when she was little." Ruth observed the exchange in silence, watching as her granddaughter, without knowing it, was planting seeds of a possibility that she herself had considered but hadn't dared to express. "Mr. Nathan," she said finally, "Lily has a very big heart, but sometimes she says things without thinking about the consequences. We don't want you to feel pressured." "I don't feel pressured, Mrs. Ruth. I feel tempted, very tempted." "Tempted by what?" "Tempted to find out if it's possible to completely change a life. If a 4-5-year-old man can learn to be part of a real family, not just someone who gives money from a distance." Ruth studied him carefully. "And what scares you about trying?" "I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of not being what you need. And I'm afraid you'll discover that underneath all this success, I'm just a scared little boy who never really learned how to be part of something." Lily got down from her chair and approached Nathan. With the solemnity of someone much older, she placed her small hand on his Uncle Nathan. "When I was scared to go to school for the first time, my grandma told me something very important. Do you want me to tell you?" "Yes, my love," she said, "that fear only means something is very important to you. If you weren't afraid of being part of our family, then we wouldn't really matter to you. But since you are scared, it means we do matter a lot." Nathan looked at Ruth over Lily's head, and in the older woman's eyes, he saw the same silent question he was asking himself. Was it possible for 3 lonely people to become a real family? "Mrs. Ruth," he said finally, "what do you think? Do you think we could try?" Ruth took a deep breath. "I think Grace would be very happy to know that her brother from the orphanage and her daughter are taking care of each other. I think it's what she would have wanted more than anything in the world." And at that moment, at the table of a humble apartment in Fountain Square, 3 people decided to embark on the riskiest and most beautiful experiment of their lives. To build a family, not with blood or legal adoption, but with love, patience, and the will to learn to belong to one another. The following 2 weeks were the most challenging and revealing of Nathan Price's life. He had begun spending his evenings at Ruth and Lily's apartment, learning not only to cook and perform basic household tasks, but also to navigate the emotional complexities of belonging to a real family. The first lesson had come when he offered to pay for a private school for Lily. "Mr. Nathan," Ruth had used her firmest tone. "Lily is doing very well in her public school. She has excellent teachers, good friends, and she's learning to live with children from her own social background. But Ruth, I want her to have the best. Things I couldn't have. She could have better opportunities at a private school, specialized teachers, modern facilities, connections." Connections. Ruth had planted herself in front of him, arms crossed. "And what would we be teaching her with that? That her worth depends on the cost of her school? That we need to rescue her from her friends? Nathan, our life isn't a problem for your money to solve. Lily is happy. She is loved. She doesn't need to be taught that her life is less than just because it's simple. That wasn't my intention. I know it wasn't your intention, son. But you need to understand something. Lily doesn't need to be rescued from her life. Her life is not a tragedy that needs correcting. She is a happy, intelligent, and well-behaved child. If you want to help her be better at who she already is, not turn her into something different." The second lesson had come when Nathan tried to take them to dinner at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. "Why do I have to wear this fancy dress, Grandma?" Lily had asked, uncomfortable in the new dress Nathan had insisted on buying her. "Because we're going to a very elegant place, my love," Ruth had explained, though it was clear she also felt uncomfortable. The result had been disastrous. Lily hadn't been able to eat anything on the menu because it all seemed strange. Ruth had spent the entire night worried about the prices and feeling judged for her manner of speaking, and Nathan had realized he was trying to impress them instead of getting to know them. Next time, Ruth had told him in the cab on the way home, "We're going for burgers at the corner joint. Good food, fair prices, and Lily can be herself." The third lesson, and the most painful, had come when Lily got sick with a high fever. Nathan had panicked, insisting on taking her to the most expensive private hospital in the city, calling specialists, organizing unnecessary tests. Ruth had had to physically stop him. "Enough," she had shouted at him for the first time since they met. "Lily has a common cold. She is not dying. Stop acting like money can cure everything. I just want her to be well, so do I. But I am her grandmother. I have taken care of her for 8 years, and I know perfectly well when she needs a doctor and when she needs chamomile tea and love. Don't turn every small problem into a crisis that only your money can solve." You can feel Nathan's panic, can't you? He's so afraid of loss. His first instinct is to try and control the situation with money. But Ruth's words are the necessary, painful lesson. You can't buy away a family's problems. You have to be there for them. This is the moment his true transformation begins. That night, while Lily slept feverishly in her small bed, Ruth had sat Nathan down in the living room for a conversation that would change his perspective forever. "Mr. Nathan, I need you to understand something very important. You lost Grace when you were 8, and that marked you deeply. But we lost Grace when Lily was 2, and that marked us too. I know, Mrs. Ruth. No, you don't. You think because you have money, you can protect us from everything bad that happens. But I've already been through the worst thing that can happen to a woman, burying my child. I already know that money can't prevent accidents, illnesses, or tragedies. What it can do is help us live with dignity while we're alive. Then, how can I help you?" Ruth had sighed deeply. "Stop treating us like a charity project. Try treating us like family. Family isn't bought, it's built, day by day, with patience, with mistakes, with forgiveness, with shared time. And if I make more mistakes, you will make them. All parents and uncles make mistakes. But the difference is that real family forgives mistakes when they come from love, not from ego." That conversation had marked a turning point. Nathan had begun to observe instead of trying to control. He learned that Lily needed help with her math, not a new computer. That Ruth appreciated an afternoon of conversation more than a cleaning lady, that they both valued his time and attention above any expensive gift. Gradually, he had begun to find authentic ways to contribute to the family. He came over on Tuesdays to help Lily with her English homework. On Thursdays, he brought groceries to cook together, not pre-made food from expensive restaurants. On Saturdays, they spent time at the nearby park, playing soccer on a makeshift field, not at exclusive clubs, and slowly, almost without realizing it, Nathan had begun to transform. His designer suits had given way to comfortable jeans and t-shirts. His rigid business schedules had become flexible to accommodate school recitals and routine doctor's appointments. His corporate vocabulary had been replaced by conversations about grades, school friends, and simple family plans. "You know, Mr. Nathan," Ruth had said to him one afternoon as he helped hang laundry on the small balcony of the building, "I think Grace would be proud of the man you've become." "Why do you say that?" "Because you're learning to be a big brother. Even if it's 30 years later, you're learning to care without smothering, to provide without controlling, and to love without conditions." That night, as he returned to his empty Carmel mansion, Nathan had looked at himself in the elevator mirror and seen something he hadn't seen since his childhood, a man who belonged to something bigger than himself. There was only one test left, the most difficult of all, a test that would come when Lily asked the question he had been avoiding for weeks. "Uncle Nathan, why do you still live in your big house if you're already part of our family?" And this time, Nathan knew he had to have a real answer. Lily's question had been left hanging in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to change the entire emotional landscape they had carefully built over a month. It was a Friday night, and the three of them were eating grilled cheese sandwiches and mashed potatoes at the small dining table when the girl had dropped her question with the brutal honesty only children possess. Ruth had stopped chewing and looked at Nathan with an expression that mixed curiosity and caution. It was the same question she had been asking herself but hadn't dared to voice. "Lily, that's a very complicated question," Nathan had replied, buying time while he organized his thoughts. "Why is it complicated?" the girl insisted. "If we're family, aren't families supposed to live together? Some families live together, others live near each other." Ruth intervened gently. "There's no single way to be a family, but my uncle looks sad when he goes to his big house, and we get sad too when he leaves." Nathan felt as if Lily had put her finger exactly on the wound he had been avoiding. It was true. Every night, when he returned to his Carmel mansion, he felt as if he were abandoning his real life to return to an artificial, empty existence. "Why didn't you sleep here last night?" Lily continued. "When we finished watching the movie, it was really late, and my grandma said you could stay on the sofa, because I didn't want to bother you, my love." "Bother us? How?" "The sofa is comfortable. My grandma sleeps there sometimes when I'm sick, and she wants to watch over me." Ruth cleared her throat delicately. "Lily, Mr. Nathan has his habits, his orderly life. He can't just, why not?" The girl interrupted. "What does he have in his big house that he doesn't have here?" Nathan grew thoughtful. What did he have in his mansion that he didn't have in this 500 square foot apartment? A bigger bed, in which he slept alone, a state-of-the-art kitchen, which he never used, a dining room for 12, where he ate in solitude, 3 living rooms, where he had never had guests who meant anything to him. "In my house, I have space," he finally answered. "Lots of rooms, big gardens, a pool. But do you have family?" The question hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. "No, my love. In my house I don't have family then. What's the point of having such a big house if you have no one to share it with?" Ruth put her hand on Lily's. "My girl, don't ask so many questions. These are adult things." "No, it's okay," Nathan said. "Lily has a right to ask, and she's right. It makes no sense to have such a big house to live in alone." "Then why don't you come live with us?" Lily asked, for the 3rd time. "We can make room. Your clothes fit in my closet, and you can use the living room table as your desk to work." Nathan looked around the small apartment, trying to imagine what it would really be like to live there, to share the only bathroom, to sleep on the love seat, to work at the table where Lily did her homework, to adapt to the schedules and routines of a real family instead of imposing his own Lily. Ruth said firmly, "That's enough questions, Mr. Nathan." "Ruth," Nathan interrupted, using her first name for the first time. "Can I ask you an honest question?" "Of course. Would you accept me living here, really? Not as a temporary guest, but as a permanent part of this family?" Ruth was silent for a long moment, studying Nathan's face with the intensity of someone making one of the most important decisions of her life. "Mr. Nathan. Nathan. Just Nathan." He corrected himself. "Nathan." For a month, I've watched you try hard to fit into our lives. I've seen how Lily loves you more every day. I've seen how you find peace here that you don't find anywhere else. And is that enough? No, Ruth replied with brutal honesty. It's not enough, because living together means more than just wanting to spend time together. It means arguing over the bathroom in the mornings. It means Lily is going to throw tantrums, and you'll have to help discipline her. It means I'm going to be sick sometimes, and you're going to have to take care of me. It means being family on the ugly days, not just the nice ones, I understand, do you? Do you really understand? Because if you come to live here and then decide it's too hard, that you prefer your comfortable, uncomplicated life, you are going to hurt Lily deeply. And I will not forgive you for that. Nathan stood up from the table and walked to the small window that overlooked the building's inner courtyard. Outside, other families were eating dinner in their own small apartments, living intertwined lives, sharing spaces, solving problems together day after day. Ruth, for 37 years, I searched for Grace because I thought finding her would fill the void in my life. Now I understand that Grace couldn't fill that void, because the void wasn't for her specifically. It was for not having a family, for not belonging, for not being needed by anyone. He turned back to Ruth and Lily, who were watching him in silence. You two have given me what I've searched for my whole life, a place where I belong. Not because I'm rich, not because I can solve problems with money, but because you love me as I am, and trust that I can learn to be better. And what does that mean? Ruth asked. It means I want to try. I want to sell my big, empty house and bring only what I need to live here with you. I want to learn to be a real uncle, a real adoptive son, a real family. Lily jumped from her chair and ran to hug him. Really, Uncle Nathan? Are you really going to come live with us? If your grandmother agrees. Yes. Ruth rose slowly and approached him. For the first time since they met, she hugged him with the genuine warmth of a mother accepting a son. Welcome home. Son, she whispered against his shoulder. Grace would be so happy to know you finally found your place in the world. Welcome home, son. More powerful than any business deal. Those words seal his new life. Nathan has made his choice. He's given up a mansion to gain a home. But the decision is the easy part. The real work of blending three lives is about to begin, and as the three of them embraced in the small living room of the Fountain Square apartment, Nathan Price knew he had just made the most important decision of his life. He wasn't just adopting a new family, he was adopting a new way of being, a new definition of wealth, a new understanding of what it meant to be alive. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, but this time, instead of a storm that separated, it was a blessing that celebrated the moment three lonely hearts became a complete family. The decision to sell his Carmel mansion wasn't as simple as Nathan had imagined. 3 weeks after making the determination to move in with Ruth and Lily, he found himself sitting in the most exclusive real estate office in the city, signing documents that represented the symbolic end of the life he had built for decades. Mr. Price, the real estate agent asked, an elegant woman who knew his reputation. Are you absolutely sure about this decision? It's an exceptional property, and the real estate market is. I'm completely sure, Nathan interrupted. I need to liquidate everything as soon as possible. May I ask if you are considering a replacement property? We can show you other options in exclusive areas. I don't need another property. I already have a home. The agent looked at him with curiosity, but her professionalism prevented her from asking more questions. After 2 hours of paperwork, Nathan left the office feeling a strange mixture of liberation and vertigo. In 3 months, when the sale was complete, he would officially be a man without a mansion, without household staff, without the external symbols that had defined his identity for so long. That afternoon, as he packed his personal belongings, he realized how much he had accumulated and how little he actually needed. Entire closets full of suits he would never wear in his new life. Works of art he had bought more as investments than for aesthetic pleasure. Books he had acquired to impress visitors he'd never had. What do you want to do with all this, sir? Alice asked him. She had accepted the news that she would lose her job when the house was sold with surprising calm. Alice, I want you to take everything you can use. The furniture, the appliances, whatever you need for your home, mister. Nathan, that's too generous. It's not generosity, it's gratitude. For 8 years, you were the only family I had in this house. Now that I have a real family, I want you to have everything you need to be happy too. Alice sat on the edge of the bed where she had seen Nathan wake up alone for so many years. "You're doing the right thing, sir. You won't regret leaving all this for a small apartment." Nathan paused in the middle of folding a shirt. "Alice, do you know the difference between this house and Ruth's apartment?" "What, sir?" "Here, I have everything money can buy. But when I come home at night, the silence is so deep I can hear my own heartbeat. Over there, I have just enough to live on. But when I arrive, there are voices that greet me, laughter that fills the space, questions about my day. Here, I am rich. Over there, I am loved. And that's enough. It's the only thing that matters." When he arrived at the apartment that night with 2 suitcases containing everything he truly valued from his previous life, Ruth and Lily were waiting for him with a special dinner and a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, Uncle Nathan." "Is that all your stuff?" Lily asked, surprised by the modesty of his luggage. "This is all the important stuff," Nathan replied. "Everything else was just decoration." Ruth had rearranged the entire apartment to make room for him. The living room table had become his makeshift office. A corner of Lily's closet now held his shirts and pants. The living room sofa, with extra cushions and a new blanket, had been transformed into his bed. "Are you really going to be comfortable sleeping here?" Ruth asked with genuine concern. "We can look for a bigger apartment, Ruth. For 20 years, I slept in a king-sized bed in a bedroom the size of this entire apartment, and I never rested as well as I think I'm going to rest on this sofa." That first night, as he settled into his new makeshift bed, Nathan listened to the sounds that define a real family. Ruth preparing the next day's breakfast in the kitchen, Lily quietly reviewing a lesson for school, the soft murmur of the television, the noises of the neighbors living their own family lives through the thin walls. For the first time in decades, he fell asleep, smiling. The first few days were a period of adjustment that tested the patience and commitment of all three. Nathan discovered that sharing one small bathroom with 2 females required complex logistics he had never considered. Ruth had to get used to having a man in the house who wanted to participate in all the domestic decisions. Lily experienced for the first time what it meant to have a present father figure who cared about her schedules, her friendships, and her grades. "Uncle Nathan," Lily said one morning over breakfast, "you don't need to ask me every day if I did my homework. I always do my homework, I know, my love. But now that I live here, your education matters to me. It's normal for the adults in the family to worry about those things, but don't you trust me? I trust you completely. But worrying about you is part of loving you. Uncles worry." Ruth observed these exchanges with a mixture of amusement and tenderness. Nathan was learning to be family the hard way. Day by day, conversation by conversation, mistake by mistake, son, she told him one afternoon, after he had insisted on accompanying Lily to a birthday party to meet the parents of her friends. "You're being a little overprotective, you think so? I just want to make sure she's safe. Lily is 10 years old and has been a responsible child her whole life. You are trying to make up for 8 years of paternal worry in 2 weeks. You're right, it's just, I've never been responsible for taking care of anyone. I don't know how much to worry, how much to trust, when to intervene, and when to let her learn on her own. Nobody is born knowing how to be a parent or an uncle. You learn as you go, by making mistakes and correcting them, and if I make a really big mistake, then you will apologize, learn the lesson, and do better next time. That's how real family works." Gradually, the rhythms of the house adjusted. Nathan learned to work from the living room table, while Lily did her homework on the other side. Both concentrated on their respective responsibilities, but keeping each other company. Ruth discovered that having Nathan in the house meant she could reduce her work hours, because he insisted on contributing to the household expenses in ways that didn't hurt her pride. Paying the electricity bill because I use a lot with my computer, buying the groceries because I eat a lot, or taking Lily to the doctor because I want to make sure my niece is healthy. But the real moment of integration came when Lily got sick again, this time with a flu that kept her in bed for 4 days. Nathan had learned from his previous mistake and did not panic. Instead of calling specialists, he took turns with Ruth caring for the girl. He made her chamomile tea, read her stories, watched movies with her, and sang her the lullaby Grace had taught him decades ago. "Uncle Nathan," Lily told him on the 3rd night, her voice hoarse but grateful, "I like that you live here. I don't feel alone anymore when I'm sick. Did you feel alone before sometimes? My grandma always took great care of me, but she also worries a lot, and she gets sad when I'm sick. With you here, I can be sick without worrying that my grandma is suffering." Those words revealed a dimension of family care to Nathan that he had never considered. It wasn't just about him learning to care for them. It was about easing the burdens Ruth had carried alone for 8 years. "You know, Lily, I don't feel alone either when I'm sick, or worried, or scared. Do adults get scared? Of course. I was very scared to move here." "What were you scared of?" "I was scared that you would find out I didn't know how to be part of a family, that I was too different, too used to living alone. And you're not scared anymore." Nathan looked at her tenderly, adjusting the blanket around her small, feverish body. "I still get scared sometimes, but now I know I'm not alone with my fears. I have you and your grandma to help me be brave. And you have us, and I have you." When Lily fell asleep that night, Ruth approached Nathan in the living room. "You know, son, I think Grace would be very proud to see us like this." Why? Because her dream was always that her orphanage family and her real family would be the same family. And now, we are. Nathan hugged Ruth with the gratitude of a son who had found his mother after decades of emotional orphanhood. "Thank you for giving me the chance to belong. Thank you for staying when it got hard outside." The city continued its fast-paced, indifferent rhythm. But inside the small apartment in Fountain Square, 3 people had achieved something money can't buy. They had created a home where love was measured not in square feet or material possessions, but in daily care, mutual patience, and the will to choose each other, day after day. 3 months after moving into the apartment permanently, Nathan faced his first real crisis as a member of the family. Lily had been invited to a classmate's birthday party in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the city, and for the first time since they lived together, she felt ashamed of her financial situation. "I don't want to go," Lily announced one Tuesday afternoon, leaving the invitation on the table without looking at it. "Why not, my love?" Ruth asked. "You like Chloe a lot. You're always talking about her because it's going to be at her huge house. And other girls are going who have parents with fancy cars and nice dresses. And I have nothing to wear." Nathan looked up from his computer, immediately recognizing the feelings the girl was experiencing. It was the first time Lily had become truly aware of the socio-economic differences that existed between her family and some of her schoolmates. "Lily," Ruth said firmly, "your value as a person doesn't depend on the clothes you wear or the car you arrive in. You are intelligent, polite, kind. But the other girls won't see that, Grandma. They'll see that I arrived on the bus, that my dress is from the thrift store, that I don't have new shoes." Ruth fell silent, knowing that, in part, Lily was right. The world could be cruel to children who showed economic differences, and she didn't have the resources to compete in that arena. Nathan closed his computer and sat at the table with them. "Lily, can I tell you something that happened to me when I was your age?" "What? At the orphanage?" Rich families would sometimes come to visit the children, especially at Christmas. They brought expensive gifts, toys we had never seen. I always felt very small next to those gifts, as if I wasn't good enough to deserve them. And what did you do? For a long time, I tried to act like I didn't care. I rejected the gifts. I was rude. I pretended I was better than them. Do you know what happened? What? I ended up alone. Because instead of accepting that there were things I couldn't change and focusing on the ones I could, I spent my time and energy feeling bad about what I didn't have. Lily listened intently but still looked doubtful. "My love," Nathan continued, "I understand exactly how you feel, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that economic differences don't exist or don't matter. They do exist, and sometimes they do matter. But do you know, the most important thing I've learned? What? That the people who are really worth it won't judge you for what you have, but for who you are. And if Chloe is really your friend, she will be very happy to see you at her birthday, no matter how you get there or what you wear. But what if the other girls make fun of me?" Ruth took Lily's hand. "If they make fun of you, then you'll know they aren't the kind of people who deserve your friendship. And if they don't make fun of you, then you'll know you've found people who are worth it. Besides," Nathan added, "you have something that money can't buy." "What?" "You have a grandmother who loves you so much that she works 2 jobs to tell you the best she can. You have an uncle who left his big house to come live here because he loves you more than any material possession. And you have a mom in heaven who left you the most valuable gift of all, A family that will support you no matter what happens. Lily was thoughtful for a moment. Do you really think that's more important than having a new dress? I am sure it's more important, but I understand that at your age, that's hard to believe. Ruth had been listening to the exchange in silence, but finally spoke. Lily, if you really want to go to the birthday party, we can do a few things. We can go downtown to find a pretty but inexpensive dress. I can ask Mrs. Miller to borrow the patent leather shoes her granddaughter wore for her graduation, and your uncle can take you in his car so you don't have to arrive by bus. You would do that for me? Of course we would, Nathan replied, but there's one condition. What, that you go with your head held high, proud of who you are and where you come from, that you don't apologize for living in Fountain Square, for having a grandmother who cleans houses, or for having an uncle who sleeps on the living room sofa, because all of that is part of a story of love and sacrifice that is far more valuable than any story of economic privilege. Lily nodded slowly. Will you help me practice what to say if someone asks me things? Absolutely. They spent the next hour practicing answers to potentially awkward questions. When someone asked where she lived, Lily would say with pride, in Fountain Square, with my grandma and my uncle. If they asked what her family did, she would reply, my grandma takes care of houses and cooks the most delicious food in the world, and my uncle is a businessman, but he lives with us because we're his most important family. When Saturday, the day of the party, arrived, Lily got dressed in a navy blue dress they had found downtown, the borrowed shoes from Mrs. Miller, and a new confidence that radiated from within. Nathan drove her in his Mercedes, but before reaching Chloe's house, he pulled over a few blocks away. Lily, how are you feeling? A little nervous, but also excited. Remember what we practiced. You are not less than anyone for having less money. You are different, and those differences are part of what makes you special. Will you pick me up at 6? I'll be here at 5:55, waiting. When Lily got out of the car and walked toward the house with a steady pace and her head held high, Nathan felt a paternal pride he didn't know could exist. It wasn't pride for having rescued her from a difficult situation, but pride for having helped her find her own strength. 3 hours later, when he returned to pick her up, Lily got into the car with a radiant smile. How did it go, my love? It was incredible. The girls were so nice to me. One of them told me my dress looked very elegant, and another asked if my uncle was the man driving the nice Mercedes. When I told them you live with us because we're your favorite family, they were impressed. Did they ask you difficult questions? Only one girl, Chloe, he asked me why we didn't live in a big house if my uncle had such a nice car. I told her exactly what we practiced. That families who love each other a lot prefer to live together, even in a small space, because being close to each other is more important than having separate rooms. And what did she say? She got quiet. And then she told me that she never eats with her parents because they're always busy, and that she feels lonely in her big house sometimes. I told her that in my house, we eat together every day, and there's always someone to talk to. This is such a proud moment. Lily has just learned the lesson that her family embodies. True wealth isn't measured in dollars or big houses, but in love and connection. She's no longer just Nathan's niece. She's the heir to his new understanding of life. Nathan felt a deep satisfaction. Lily had learned one of the most important lessons in life, that real wealth isn't measured in square feet or material possessions, but in the quality of the human relationships we build. I'm so proud of you, Lily. You handled yourself with so much dignity and wisdom. You know what, Uncle Nathan? At first I was afraid the other girls would think we were poor, but then I realized we're not poor, we're just different, and I like being different. When they got home and Lily recounted the experience to Ruth, the grandmother hugged her with tears in her eyes. My girl, you just learned something that takes many adults a lifetime to understand. A person's value doesn't depend on what they have, but on what they are. That night, as the three of them ate dinner at their small table, Nathan realized they had passed their first test as a united family. They hadn't tried to hide or change who they were to fit external expectations. Instead, they had found ways to be proud of their story, their decisions, and their mutual love. You know, Nathan said, I think Grace would be very proud of how Lily handled this situation. Why? The girl asked. Because you showed you inherited the best of your mum, dignity, intelligence, and the ability to find wealth in family love. And as Lily smiled with that new confidence she had discovered in herself, Nathan knew his role as an uncle had evolved beyond providing financial security. He was now also a builder of self-esteem, a protector of family dignity, and a teacher of values that would endure far longer than any material inheritance. The first year of family life had passed with the surprising speed that characterizes happy periods. Nathan had completely adapted to the rhythms of the small apartment. The hurried mornings where the three shared the bathroom in timed shifts, the afternoons of supervised homework at the dining table, the nights of family movies on the sofa that had become his bed. His professional life had also evolved. He had sold 2 of his companies and restructured the others to work mainly from home, appearing at the office only for essential meetings. His colleagues and partners had noticed the change, some with curiosity, others with veiled concern about his shifting priorities. Nathan Ryan, his assistant, had told him during one of his weekly office visits, "The Japanese investors want to meet with you next week to discuss the hotel expansion, but you had requested we not schedule anything after 4 p.m. "That's right. Afternoons are for my family. Sir, with all due respect, this meeting could mean profits in the multi-millions. Ryan, a year ago, I would have cancelled any family commitment for that meeting. Now I understand that there are more important things than multi-million-dollar profits. Like what? Like being present when my niece shows me a new song she learned in school. Like helping Ruth with dinner. Like being part of the everyday conversations that build family relationships. Day by day, Ryan had nodded respectfully, though it was clear he didn't fully understand his boss's transformation. Schedule the meeting for 10 a.m. and block off the rest of the day to be with my family. But not all adaptations had been easy. The most significant difference had manifested in Nathan's relationship with his former social circle. The invitations to dinners at exclusive restaurants, to high society charity events, to weekends at country clubs, he had begun to dwindle when it became clear his priorities had radically changed. "What's wrong with Price?" he had overheard someone comment during a board meeting. He used to be the first to arrive at any social event, and now he turns everything down because of family commitments. They say he's living in a small apartment in a working-class neighborhood with an old lady and a kid. Some think he had financial problems and is ashamed to admit it. Others say he's going through some kind of midlife crisis. You know how these successful bachelors get when they hit their 40 seconds. The comments didn't hurt him, but they did make him reflect on how his definition of success and social status had changed. Before, his self-worth had depended on the external perception of his wealth and social position. Now, his self-esteem was built on Lily's smile when he came home, on Ruth's growing trust in him as a paternal figure, on the sense of belonging he felt every night sleeping on the sofa of a family that had chosen him, not for his money, but for his capacity to love. One Saturday morning, as the 3 of them were eating breakfast in their usual routine, Lily asked a question that crystallized the entire transformation process he had experienced. "Uncle Nathan, yesterday at school, the teacher asked what we wanted to be when we grow up. I said I wanted to be an accountant to help my family, like always. But then she asked what our parents or uncles wanted to be when they were kids, to see if they fulfilled their dreams. And what did you tell her?" "I told her I didn't know what you wanted to be when you were a kid, because you never told me." Nathan put his coffee mug down, realizing that in all the time they had lived together, he had talked a lot about his search for grace and his business life, but very little about his childhood dreams. "What did I want to be when I was a kid?" He repeated the question thoughtfully. "You know, Lily, when I was little in the orphanage, I never thought about specific professions like doctor or engineer. My only dream was to have a family. Just that. For an orphan, Lily, having a family isn't just that. It's everything. I dreamed of having people who would ask me how my day at school was, who would worry if I was late, who would celebrate my birthdays, who would take care of me when I was sick." Ruth listened intently, recognizing in his words the echo of all the children who have grown up without the security of unconditional love. "And did you fulfill your dream?" Lily asked, with the direct sincerity only children possess. Nathan looked at her, then at Ruth, and finally glanced around the small apartment that had become the home of his deepest dreams. "Yes, my love, I fulfilled my dream. I have a family that worries about me, that celebrates my achievements, that takes care of me when I'm sad or sick. I have an adoptive grandmother who teaches me to cook with love, and a niece who teaches me that joy is in the small things of everyday life." "So, You're successful. I am more successful than I ever imagined I could be. But don't you miss your big house? Your fancy car? Your nice things? Nathan smiled, remembering the conversations he'd had with himself during the first few months of adaptation. You know, Lily, at first, I did miss some things. I missed having my own bathroom, my own bedroom, my own kitchen. But then I realized something very important. What? That all those things gave me comfort, but they didn't give me companionship. They gave me privacy, but they didn't give me conversation. They gave me space, but they didn't give me love. Ruth discreetly wiped the tears that had begun to form in her eyes. Son, when Grace was a little girl, she always told me that when she grew up, she wanted to live in a house where there was laughter every day. I think, without knowing it, you have helped fulfill my daughter's dream. How? Because ever since you've lived here, there is laughter in this house every day. Lily laughs when you try to cook and you burn the potatoes. I laugh when I see you trying to fold your clothes in the tiny closet space. And you laugh when Lily teaches you new slang she learns at school. And that's what Grace wanted. Grace always said that happiness wasn't in having a lot, but in sharing the little you have with the right people. Nathan extended his hands across the table, and Ruth and Lily placed theirs on top, creating a physical circle that symbolized the emotional circle they had built. Do you know what I've decided? What they both asked in unison. That when Lily asks me in a few years if I managed to fulfill my dreams, I'm going to tell her that I not only fulfilled them, but I discovered dreams I didn't even know I had. Like what? Like the dream of being an uncle. Like the dream of having an adoptive mother who teaches me to be a better person. Like the dream of belonging to a family that loves me not for what I have, but for who I am. Lily got up from her chair and went around the table to hug Nathan. Uncle, when I grow up and have my own family, I want it to be just like this family. What is this family like? It's a family where everyone takes care of everyone, where nobody is left alone when they're sad, and where hugs are free, but they're worth more than anything you can buy. At that moment, embraced by Lily and with Ruth smiling at them from the other side of the table, Nathan Price knew he had completed the most important transformation of his life. He was no longer the lonely millionaire desperately seeking to fill an emotional void. He was, simply, Nathan. Uncle, adoptive son, a member of a family he had built with love, patience, and the daily will to choose each other above all other considerations. Success, he discovered, wasn't measured in bank figures or material possessions. It was measured in the wealth of human relationships, in the depth of shared love, and in the absolute certainty that he had a place in the world where he completely belonged. The second anniversary of Nathan's arrival in their lives coincided with Lily's 12th birthday, and Ruth had decided to organize a celebration that honored both the date of their meeting and the girls' growth. During the preceding weeks, the three had worked together on the preparations, turning the party planning into a family project that reflected everything they had learned about working as a team. Are you sure you want to have the party here in the apartment? Nathan asked Lily. We could rent a bigger hall. Invite more people. Uncle, I want it to be here, in our house, with the people who really matter to me. The guest list had been carefully crafted. 5 of Lily's classmates, Mrs. Miller and her granddaughter from the next apartment, Alice with her family, Mike the driver with his wife, and Ryan from Nathan's work with his kids. It was an eclectic mix that represented all the worlds that had merged in Nathan's new life. Won't it look strange? Ruth had asked with concern. Mixing such different people, Ruth. Our family is already a strange mix of different people, and it works perfectly. I think our friends will understand that what unites us isn't where we come from, but the affection we have for each other. On the day of the party, the small apartment was transformed. Ruth had cooked for 2 days. Fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, sandwiches, and a 3-layer chocolate cake she had perfected over the years. Nathan had contributed sodas, sweet tea made according to Ruth's secret recipe, and simple but cheerful decorations. Lily had made handmade invitations for each guest, personalizing each one with a special message. As the guests began to arrive, Nathan watched with fascination as people from completely different worlds interacted. Ryan, accustomed to executive meetings, chatted animatedly with Mrs. Miller about the best techniques for growing plants in small pots. Alice exchanged cooking recipes with Ruth, while their respective families played with Ryan's children in the building's tiny courtyard. You know, Mr. Nathan, Mike approached him during the party. "I've never been to a celebration where everyone looked so genuinely happy." "What do you mean? At the parties of wealthy people I've driven you to, everyone seems to be acting, trying to impress others. Here, you can see people are really having fun, with no pretenses. It's because here, nobody has to prove anything to anyone. We're just here to celebrate Lily and have a good time together." The most emotional moment of the afternoon came when Lily asked for silence to make a toast. Standing on a chair so everyone could see her, she raised her glass of sweet tea and spoke with a maturity that surprised everyone present. "I want to thank everyone for coming to my birthday, but I also want to toast something very special. Today isn't just my 12th birthday. It's also the 2nd anniversary of the day I found my Uncle Nathan. Or maybe the day he found us. My mom died when I was very little, but I know she sent my uncle to us. He came to take care of us, and we came to take care of him. Today, I'm celebrating that I have the most beautiful family in the world." Lily raised her glass higher. "To my grandma Ruth, who taught me that love is stronger than any difficulty. To my Uncle Nathan, who left his big house to come live with us, because he understood that home isn't a place, but the people who love you. And to my mom, Grace, who helped us find each other from heaven." Everyone present raised their glasses, and Nathan felt his heart could explode with pride and emotion. This 2-year-old girl had articulated, better than any adult, the essence of what they had built together. After the toast, as the party continued, Ruth approached Nathan. "Son, I need to talk to you in private." They moved to the apartment's small balcony, where they could talk without being overheard. "Is something wrong?" "Ruth, no. Nothing's wrong. On the contrary, I want to give you something very special." Ruth pulled a yellowish envelope from her apron pocket, one that was clearly years old. "What is this?" "It's a letter Grace wrote before she died. She had hidden it in her house, and I found it when I went to collect her things after the accident. It has your name written on the outside." Nathan took the envelope with trembling hands. In Grace's clear, familiar handwriting it said, "For Nathan, my brother of the heart, when you find him." After all this time, a final message from Grace herself. This is the moment his healing becomes complete. He's been given a home by Ruth and Lily, and now he's being given Grace's final blessing. What wisdom and love did she leave for him in those pages? Let's listen. "She knew I would find her. Grace always had faith that you would be reunited. She said that promises made with true love are always kept, even if it takes a lifetime. Why are you giving this to me now? Because now I know you are truly part of our family. At first, I was afraid you would leave when you realized how difficult everyday life with a real family is. But 2 years have passed, and you are still here, choosing us every day." Nathan hugged Ruth. "I'm never leaving, Ruth. This is my family, forever. Then read the letter when you're ready." Grace had important things to tell you. That night, after all the guests had left and Lily was asleep, exhausted but happy, Nathan sat on his sofa bed with Grace's letter in his hands. Ruth had discreetly retired to her bedroom, giving him privacy for this personal moment. With reverent care, he opened the envelope and unfolded the pages written in the handwriting he remembered from the orphanage school books. "My dearest Nathan, if you are reading this letter, it means my faith was rewarded, and we finally found each other, even if it's in a way I couldn't have foreseen. It means you met my mother, Ruth, and my daughter, Lily, and that somehow fate wove our lives together, just as I always dreamed it would. I want you to know that not a single day of my adult life passed without thinking of you. In every lullaby I sang to Lily, I heard your little boy's voice singing to me. In every moment of happiness, I wished you were there to share it. In every moment of difficulty, I remembered your strength when you were little, and I found the strength to keep going. I don't know what kind of man you've become, but I know what kind of boy you were. Generous, brave, loyal, capable of loving deeply, despite having lost your parents so young. Those qualities don't fade with time. They only get stronger. If you are reading this, it probably means I am no longer with you physically. But I want you to know that you kept your promise to take care of me, because all the love you gave me during our childhood stayed with me my entire life. And now, I ask you to do something more. Take care of my family as I would have taken care of yours if our roles were reversed. Ruth is the strongest woman I know, but also the one who has suffered the most. Help her find peace in her later years. Lily is intelligent and determined. But she will need someone to teach her she can achieve anything she sets her mind to. Be for them what you were for me. Protection, unconditional love, and the certainty that they will never be alone. But also, let them take care of you. Ruth has a wisdom that only comes from having lived much and loved much. Lily has a joy that can heal you in ways you can't even imagine. Allow them to be your family as much as you are theirs. Don't look for guilt over the years we were apart. Look for gratitude for the years we have left together, even if it's through the people we love. I love you, little brother. I always loved you. I will always love you. Your sister of the heart, Grace. P.S. Please sing Lily the full song I used to sing to you when we were kids, the one that started with sleep. My dear child, I always worried I'd forgotten some of the verses I knew back then. She must know the whole song that united us from the beginning. Nathan read the letter 3 times before he could fold it, without his tears blurring the words. It was the perfect closing of a circle that had begun 30 years ago in an orphanage, had continued with decades of lonely searching, and now culminated in a family that honored Grace's memory every day. He walked quietly to Lily's room and watched her sleep for a moment. Then he approached Ruth's room and knocked gently. "Ruth, are you awake?" "Yes, son. Come in." Ruth was sitting up in bed, clearly waiting for him to process the letter's contents. "I wanted to thank you for giving me the letter. And for everything. What did you think of what Grace wrote?" "I think she was right. That promises made with true love are always kept. And that sometimes families aren't just lost. They are also found." Ruth smiled. "And now what now? We do what Grace asked. We take care of each other. We build a life together that honors her memory. And we make sure Lily grows up knowing she is unconditionally loved. Sounds like a good plan. Ruth, can I ask you something? Of course, do you think Grace would be proud of what we've built?" Ruth stood up and hugged Nathan, as only a mother can hug a son. "Son, Grace wouldn't just be proud, she would be at peace. Because her greatest fear was that the people she loved would be left alone. And her greatest dream was that they would find their way back to each other. You 3 fulfilled both." That night, Nathan slept on his sofa bed with Grace's letter on his chest and the absolute certainty that he had found not only the family he had searched for all his life, but also the version of himself he had been waiting to be since childhood, a man capable of loving and being loved, of caring and being cared for, of belonging completely to something larger and more beautiful than his individual achievements. 5 years had passed since that rainy night that changed 3 lives forever. Lily had grown into a 17-year-old young woman, intelligent and determined. Ruth had aged with the grace of one who finds peace in her later years, and Nathan had evolved into the man he had dreamed of being since his childhood in the orphanage. It was a Sunday afternoon in spring, and the 3 of them were in the small community garden that the building's residents had created in the backyard. Nathan had contributed resources to improve the space. Ruth had contributed her knowledge of plants and flowers, and Lily had organized the building's children to keep the area clean. The garden had become the perfect symbol of what they could achieve when different types of people worked together toward a common goal. "Uncle Nathan," said Lily, who was now the top student at her high school, "I've decided what I'm going to study in college." "You don't want to be an accountant anymore?" he asked, remembering the dream Lily had held for years. "Yes, but I also want to study social work. I want to help orphan children find families, like we found each other." Ruth, who was now 73 but retained her vitality and wisdom, smiled from the bench where she was knitting a blanket to donate to the orphanage where Nathan and Grace had lived. "That's a beautiful way to honor your mum's memory, my girl. And what do you think, Uncle?" Nathan stopped watering the tomato plants he had learned to cultivate with Ruth's patience. "I think you'll be extraordinary at whatever you decide to do, but I think it's perfect that you want to help other children find what we found. And will you support me?" "Of course, but not just financially. I'll support you with time, with advice, with experience. We'll work together to create programs that really work." Lily approached him and hugged him with the naturalness that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. "You know what I love most about our family? What? That we're always looking for. Ways to share what we have with others. As if the love we gave each other grew so big that it doesn't fit just between the 3 of us anymore." Ruth looked up from her knitting. "That is the most beautiful legacy Grace could have left you." the certainty that love multiplies when it is shared. At that moment, Mike arrived at the garden with his wife and children, followed by Ryan and his family. Over the 5 years, a tradition had been established to meet on Sundays in the garden, to eat together, chat, and keep alive the connections that had been born from Nathan's transformation. "How are the plants?" Boss Mike asked, using the affectionate nickname he had adopted for Nathan. "They're doing great. Ruth says we're going to have the best tomato harvest in the whole building this year." "And how is the orphanage project going?" Ryan asked. For the past 2 years, Nathan had channeled much of his energy and resources into modernizing St. Joseph's orphanage. It wasn't just about financial donations, it was a deep personal commitment. He had implemented educational programs, improved the facilities, and, above all, created a system to help children find adoptive or foster families very well. Last month, we helped 5 children find permanent families, and Lily is organizing a mentorship program where college students will go to teach and support the younger children. Like Grace supported you. Exactly. Like Grace supported me. As they prepared the potluck meal on the garden's makeshift tables, Nathan observed the scene with a gratitude that still surprised him after 5 years. It wasn't just that he had found his family, it was that he had discovered a completely new way of existing in the world. His decisions were no longer based solely on financial gain or personal achievement, but on how he could contribute to the well-being of the people he loved and the wider community he was part of. "What are you thinking about, son?" Ruth asked him. Noticing his contemplative expression, "I was thinking about how my definition of success has changed, what it was before and what it is now. And before, success was accumulating money, properties, social recognition. It was a constant competition to have more than others, to prove my worth through material possessions. And now, success is contributing to Lily's happiness, to your peace of mind, to the well-being of the children at the orphanage, to the improvement of our community. It's a constant collaboration to create something bigger than any of us separately." Lily, who had been listening to the conversation while helping to serve the food, chimed in with the insight she had developed over the years. "Uncle, do you remember when you told me your only dream as a child was to have a family?" "Of course, I think. Your dream was bigger than you thought." "How so?" "I think your dream wasn't just to have a family, but to create family for others. That's why you feel so fulfilled working with the orphanage. That's why you love it when people come to eat here on Sundays. That's why you're always looking for ways to connect people who need to find each other." Nathan fell silent, processing Lily's observation. She was right. His deepest satisfaction came not just from finding family for himself, but from facilitating others finding theirs. "You know, Lily, I think you're right. I think Grace taught me that taking care of one person is beautiful, but helping many people take care of each other is transformative. And you learned that from my mom. I learned it from your mom, from your grandma, and from you. I learned that love isn't something that runs out when you share it. It's something that grows." Ruth had been listening with the wise smile of someone who sees the seeds she planted years ago finally blossoming into ripe fruit. "Children, may I say something?" Both Nathan and Lily turned to her. "For many years after Grace's death, I wondered why God had allowed something so terrible to happen, why he had taken my daughter when she had so much love to give, so many plans to fulfill." "And did you find the answer?" Nathan asked gently. "I found it here, in this garden, watching you two work together to help other children find families. I realized that Grace didn't leave. She multiplied. Her love lives in Lily. Her compassion lives in you, and her dream that no one should be left alone is being fulfilled through everything you do together." Ruth's words floated in the garden air like a blessing, encompassing not only the 3 of them, but all the people who had benefited from Nathan's transformation, Lily's growth, and Ruth's wisdom. Grandma Lily said with emotion, "Do you think my mum would be proud of what we've built? My girl, your mum wouldn't just be proud. She would be ecstatic, because you took the pain of losing her and turned it into the tool to ensure that other children wouldn't be left alone. Like you were." Nathan hugged Ruth and Lily simultaneously, and for a moment, the 3 stood in silence, wrapped in gratitude for the path they had walked together. "You know," Nathan said finally, "I think it's time we all sing the full song Grace mentioned in her letter. The one that started with, 'Sleep, my dear child,' that's the one. Grace was right. You must know the whole song that united us from the beginning." As the sun began to set over the community garden where they had built their new life, Nathan began to sing, his voice clear and full of love. "Sleep, my dear child. The moon will watch over you. Close your tender eyes, for tomorrow the sun will shine. Though the night is long and the silence makes you scared, remember someone loves you, and you'll never be alone. The stars are promises that love never dies, that families find each other when you need them most. Sleep, my dear child, for tomorrow begins, a new day of adventures with those who will love you." Lily and Ruth joined in the song on the second verse, their voices weaving together in a harmony that seemed to include Grace's voice as well present in every note, every word, every promise of love that had survived time, separation, and death to reunite a family that had been destined to find each other from the beginning. When they finished singing, the garden was lit by the first stars of the evening, and the three of them knew they had completed a circle that had begun decades ago, with a girl singing to a frightened boy during a storm. Love, they discovered, doesn't just survive loss. It transforms, it multiplies, and it finds ways to continue protecting, comforting, and uniting the people who are destined to be family, no matter how much time or how many difficulties they have to go through to find each other. And on that perfect night, under the stars that had been silent witnesses to their story, Nathan Price knew his search had ended. Not because he had found what he was looking for, but because he had discovered that what he was looking for had never really been lost. It had just been waiting for the perfect moment to reveal that true love knows no boundaries of time, space, or even death. The family he had searched for 37 years, he hadn't just found it. He had helped it grow, expand, and become a force that would continue to create connections and heal hearts long after he. Ruth and Lily followed their own path to the stars. What an incredible emotional journey. We truly hope this story gave you hope. If you were moved by the story, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. We have one last question for the comments. Do you think Nathan made the right decision to give up his old life? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.